Masechet Zevaḥim Daf Yod Tet. We're talking about the laws of Bigdei Kohen, that a Kohen has to be wearing his proper vestments in order to serve in the Bet HaMikdash. For a regular Kohen, that's 4 garments, and for a Kohen Gadol, it's 8 garments. If a Kohen serves in the Mikdash and performs a rite of the Korban without proper garments, then the Korban is pasul. Now, this means 2 laws. Number 1, he has to have the right amount of garments, not less and not more. He cannot wear 2 pants. He can't wear other garments. He can't wear a scarf and a sweatshirt and other things that he wants to put on. Or he has to wear 4 garments and only those 4 for a regular Kohen. And furthermore, he cannot have an interposition. He cannot put anything between his skin and the garment. Now that we know those 2 principles, let's see the further application and expansion on them. Tenan hatam. Kohen shelaka be'espa'o korech aleha gemi b'mikdash. Ava lo b'medina. V'im lo sim men adam kan v'chan asur. If a Kohen has an injury on his finger, it's not a very serious injury, but he wants to put a bandage on it. And so he's permitted to put a reed grass on the injury, and that will, number 1, help it aesthetically to look better, so that when he's serving, it will not be seen. Also, it helps to heal it. That's permitted to do in the Mikdash, but not elsewhere, not outside the Mikdash in the Medina. The issue here is that it's also Shabbat. So let's deal with the Medina first. On Shabbat, one is not permitted to perform healing. If it's life-threatening, of course you're allowed. But here, this is not life-threatening, not such a small injury, just a small injury. You can wait till after Shabbat, and therefore, he is not permitted to put a bandage on it on Shabbat. However, if one is in the Mikdash, there's a law that shivut, all this is midrabanan, because you may come to grind things. So shivut does not apply in the Mikdash. And by having this bandage, it will allow the Kohen to be able to perform, and therefore that is more important, that overrides the drabanan prohibition of healing on Shabbat. So that's issue number 1, that it's Shabbat. Furthermore, and this is the main point here, is that this is not considered an extra garment. It's just, it's very small. It's not a very significant thing. You wouldn't call that a garment if it's just a small piece of grass that you wrapped around your finger in order to protect the wound. And now, if the purpose of putting this reed there is to extract blood, a little bloodletting, to get that blood out, they thought that the blood coming out, also the disease would come out, then it's prohibited everywhere, for sure in the Medina, where it's prohibited anyway, and this would also be prohibited in the Mikdash, because at this point it's turning into a deoraita. Making a wound that extracts blood is a deoraita prohibition, and so that is not, that's more serious, and you cannot do that, not even in the Mikdash. Amar Rabbi Yehuda bered Rabbi Chia, lo shanu ela gemi, aval silsul katan have yitur begadim. Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Chia, comments on that Mishnah in Eruvin and said, that's only true if it's a small reed, just a little piece of grass. But if it's a small sash, so made out of some kind of cloth, then that's a more significant item. And that would be prohibited, because that would be called a beged. That's a garment. Now, even though it's pretty small, it's just going around one's finger, but still, that's already considered a garment. It's made out of some kind of cloth, and that would be prohibited. Rabbi Yochanan amar, lo ameru yitur begadim ela b'mkom begadim, aval shelo b'mkom begadim la have yitur. While Rabbi Yehuda added a stringency, interpreted the Mishnah for stringency, Rabbi Yehuda went the other way around, and he is very lenient. And he said, no, when we talk about an extra garment, that's only if you wear an extra garment in a place where the Kohen wears garments. If he puts on another hat, on top of the hat that he wears, another hat. He wears 2 pairs of pants. That's the problem. But if it's not in a spot where one puts on clothing, then it's not considered an extra garment. And the hands, the Kohanim don't wear gloves; they have bare hands, and therefore putting a bandage around one's finger, even if it's made out of cloth, is not considered an extra garment. It's not the place where you put garments, so you can put something on your hand or on some place that doesn't have, it's not a place where one puts garments. So Rabbi Yochanan is much more lenient. And now we ask, according to Rabbi Yochanan, won't that be a chatzitza? The Kohen, he has to use his hand in order to go and get the bowl. He has to hold the bowl in his hand. And the law is that the bowl that he's touching, or whatever he's handling, has to touch his skin directly. And if he has a bandage around his finger, then that place will be an interposition, a chatzitza. So the answer is be small. No, we're talking about where he has a wound on his left hand. All the services that a Kohen does has to be with the right hand, and therefore the left hand, that won't get in the way. Iname shelo b'mkom avodah, or it could be in a spot that is not going to impede his service, like on the back of his hand or something like that, where it's not a place that he's actually touching a bowl or any sacred vessel or anything. And therefore, it's not going to be a chatzitza between his skin and the bowl. So that's what it's talking about. Now, Rabbi Yochanan, who is very lenient, will disagree with Rava. Rava comes after, so we can say Rava will disagree with Rabbi Yochanan. Damar Rava amar Rav Chisda, b'mkom begadim afilu nima achat choseset, shelo b'mkom begadim shalosh al shalosh chosesot, pachot mikan enan chosesot. So Rava does also make a distinction between a place where you put garments and a place where you don't put garments, but his distinction is more stringent. He says in a place where you do put garments, even one thread is going to make it prohibited. You have one thread that is on your skin, and then you put the cloak on or the pants on. That one thread will be a chatzitza. So no matter how small or insignificant, that's a problem. If it's on one's hands, for example, not a place where you put clothing on, then if it's 3 by 3 hand breadths, so it's pretty small, about, 1.5 inches squared, then it will be an interposition, but smaller than that, it will not be an interposition. So it's more stringent than Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan says, if it's not in a place where you put garments, then it doesn't matter how big or small it is, it's okay. According to Rabbi Yochanan, sounds like you could wear a whole glove on your left hand, and that would be okay. But Rava says no, only 3 by 3 and smaller is okay, but bigger than that is not. So Ad Rabbi Yochanan Vadai Peliga. So certainly Rava would disagree with Rabbi Yochanan. Ad Rabbi Yehuda Bered Rabbi Chia Milema de Pliga. But does he disagree with Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda said that if one puts reed grass, so that's the Mishnah said reed on a finger, that's okay. But if you put a small sash, then that's not permitted. Now, let's assume a small sash is smaller than 3 by 3. It's just like a little tiny Band-Aid. And so it does seem that Rava is more lenient than Rabbi Yehuda, because Rava says less than 3 by 3 is okay, and Rabbi Yehuda says that this little sash is not okay. And the answer is no, they could agree. Shanes silsul katan de hashib. A small sash is an important thing. And so when Rava said 3 by 3, he was just talking about a plain old patch that's not a significant item. So if it's 3 by 3 or more, then it's significant. If it's smaller than that, it's not significant. But if something is made as like a little sash, and it's like sewed and nice looking thing that's made for that purpose, then even though it's smaller than 3 by 3, it's a significant item. And therefore, Rava may very well agree with Rabbi Yehuda that is prohibited. All that was one version of the discussion. But the next version, we still have the same Mishnah, Eruvin didn't change, that we saw before, that a reed grass is okay in the Mikdash. Lishana Charina Amrila. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Bered Rabbi Chia Lo Shanu Ela Gemi Aval Silsul Katan Hoses. Rabbi Yehuda's statement on the Mishnah is almost exactly the same. There's one word difference, but it doesn't make a practical difference. Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Chia, says that the Mishnah that permitted putting a reed grass on a finger in the Mikdash is permitted, that's only if it's reed grass. But if it's a small sash, then it's not permitted. In this version, he doesn't say because it's an extra garment, but rather he says because it will be an interposition. Okay, so there may be some case where that will make a difference if you put it on the other hand, where a place was not an interposition. Okay, but basically, it's almost the same as the first version. But Rabbi Yochanan is now completely different. Rabbi Yochanan amar, lo amdu chatzitza b'pachot mishalosh al shalosh, ela b'makom begadim. אבל שלא במקום בגדים, 3 על 3 חוססות, פחות מכאן אינה חוססות. והיינו דרבה, אמר רב חיסדא. In this version, Rabbi Yochanan is not so totally lenient as he was in the first version, but rather he says, we only say that there's no problem of hatzitza if it's less than 3 by 3, when it's less than 3 by 3, if it's a place where you usually put clothing. In other words, if it's a place where you usually put clothing, like on someone's leg or on someone's stomach, where usually it's covered with clothing, then it is a chatzitza, even if it's small. That's almost the same as what Rava said. Rava said even a thread. Okay, he doesn't say even a thread, but he does say smaller than 3 by 3, which sounds like any size is a problem in a place of clothing. Aval shelo b'makom begadim, but if it's a place where you don't usually put clothing, like on the hands, then if it's 3 by 3 finger breadths or more, it is a chatzitza. Less than that, it's not a chatzitza. That's exactly what Rava said in the name of Rav חיסדא. So in this version, in the first version, we said Rava is not the same as Rabbi Yochanan, but in this version, Rava and Rabbi Yochanan say just about the same thing. But now we ask about this. Rabbi Yochanan and Rava, who say the same thing, should we say that they disagree with Rabbi Yehuda? Because Rabbi Yehuda seems more stringent, since he said even a small sash on a finger is an interposition, and they say that if it's smaller than 3 by 3 on the hand, it's okay. And we say no, they could all agree, because they may very well say that a sash is something significant. Even though it's small, it's significant, and therefore is considered an interposition. So it's not just about size. If it's just a piece of cloth that's not significant, that's not shaped or anything made specifically, then like a patch, then 3 by 3 or more is significant. But if it's made in a certain way to be useful as a sash, then even smaller than 3 by 3, it would be prohibited. Now we ask, according to the Rabbi Yochanan, why does the Mishnah teach that a reed is permitted? If he thinks that even, so assuming not like this interpretation that we just saw, that silsul katan is important, let's say we take Rabbi Yochanan literally, that anything less than 3 by 3 is permitted, then why does, according to him, does the Mishnah say that a reed grass is permitted? Why not say that, even a small bandage is permitted, a small sash is permitted, and then I would figure out all the more so reed grass, which is less significant, would be permitted. And the answer is it was mentioning this, by the way, because it also wanted to teach us a law about Shabbat, and a reed that you put on it is a healing thing, that's called a medication, and therefore it was in the context of Eruvin, about laws of Shabbat. And so that's why it mentioned the grass, so that's why I said grass. But really, indeed, according to this version, this understanding of Rabbi Yochanan, it could be that Rabbi Yochanan would agree that a silsul katan is permitted, even though the Mishnah didn't mention it explicitly, but mentioned reed grass because of the context. Ba'aya Rava, more on the same subject, questions from Rava. Nichnesa lo ruach bigdo, mahu. Al besaro ba'inan v'haleka od yilmad derech lebisha bekach. If a Kohen is wearing the 4 garments properly, nothing else, nothing more. However, some wind comes and makes a large empty space between his skin and his garment. The wind comes and through his shirt, through his pants, and now there's a big pocket of air. So what do we say? Does it have to be on his skin literally? And now it's not on the skin because there might be a couple of inches of space there. Or do we say, no, that's the way of wearing it. When you wear something, it doesn't mean it's skin tight. I'm not talking about leggings here. We're talking about something that is a regular cloth that moves, and sometimes it's a little farther, a little closer. The point is that there's no item, there's no object that's in between. Okay, that's question one. We don't answer it. Kina mahu shetachutz. What about a louse? They fly around, can't help it, and now the louse is flying inside his pants. Is that considered a interposition? Now it depends. If it's a dead louse, for sure it's interposition. Nobody wants a dead louse. It's just going to sit there, not going to move or go away. So that's a problem. But what if it's living? Do we say, since it comes and goes, it comes here, it moves around over there, so it's kind of like a growth. If someone has a natural growth on their skin or pimple, so that's not an interposition. It's just there. It comes, it goes. It's not significant. Or do we say, since a person doesn't want it, if anyone would see a louse there, he would immediately remove it. And therefore, it is an interposition. Okay, we leave that question open also. How about dirt? Is dirt interposition? We say, of course dirt is. Nobody wants the dirt there. No, we didn't mean dirt. We meant a dust. Not a clump of dirt. That would be a problem. But just a little bit of dust. How about that? We don't know. Bet hashechi mahu sheyachotz. What about the sleeve opening near the armpit? So where that sleeve opening connects near the armpit. So if it's not very tight, then there might be a lot of space there where near the shoulder where the sleeve hangs down. So is that empty space a problem? Does it have to be literally on his skin and this is not tight enough? Or does it mean that it's a normal way of wearing it and then it's permitted? We don't answer. What if someone puts his hand in between his skin and his chest and the garment? He puts his hand under his garment. How about that? Can his own hand be an interposition or not? Maybe he puts his hand in there. Maybe it's cold. He's putting his left hand inside his shirt while he's doing a service with his right hand. We leave this open also. Nima mahu shetachutz, nima vaday chaysa, ela nima medodelet mahu. How about a thread? So we say a thread, certainly a thread, if it's under the clothing, will surely be an interposition. Interposition, we saw that before. But the question is, no, what if it's a thread that's hanging? It's a little bit attached to the garment itself. So it's part of the garment, but it's hanging by literally a thread, or even less than a thread. It's going to fall off soon. So do you consider that separate or attached? Mor bar Rav Asher yasa se'aro bibigdo mahu se'aro kegufo dameh or lav kegufo dameh. Mor bar Rav Asher asked, what if his hair on his head is a little bit long and it goes down into his collar under his shirt? So what do we say there? Do we say that his hair is like his body, and if his body does not interpose, we're assuming that, remember when he put his hand in, if you say that his own body is not in interposition, his hand, then so too his hair is like part of his body and therefore is not a chatzitza? Or do we say hair is less part of one's body than your hand itself and therefore it is considered a chatzitza? All these questions we leave open-ended. How about the Kohen wearing tefillin? Kohen wearing tefillin, why not? And so he's wearing an extra item. So do we call that an extra garment? It could be an extra garment, or it could be actually a separation. If you have like the tefillin, and then it's under this hat. So then that's a separation between his head and the hat. Or it might be under his sleeve, and then it's a separation between his skin and the sleeve. So we have to ask about both of those things. It says mashu she'achotzu. So it sounds like we're primarily worried about it being a chatzitza, although it might also be an extra garment. If you follow the opinion that says nighttime is not a time of tefillin, that's what we say today. We don't wear tefillin at night, so we don't have to ask a question about that, because since at night where it's not a needed garment, it's not a mitzvah, so surely it will be a chatzitza at night. So if it's not good at night, then that will carry over also in the morning. Since it's not always permitted to wear it, so then it will be never permitted to wear it. It's going to be considered chatzitza during the day also. So we can solve the problem according to that opinion. Ki teba elach leman damar laila zeman tefillin mai misva de gufeh hayitz or la hayitz. But there is another opinion that says one is permitted to wear tefillin also at night. According to that opinion, do we say that a mitzvah that one is fulfilling with his body still is a chatzitza, even though it's a mitzvah, but it's on your body, you can't have it there? Or do we say, no, since it's a mitzvah, it's okay, and you can wear the tefillin also with the clothing of the Kohen. So the rabbis discussed this, and eventually the question came to the Bi'ameh. Oh, we have a tradition about this. It's set forth. It's clear that tefillin are an interposition. So pretty amazing thing. The Kohen, he has to wear tefillin, go in the morning, go to minyan, wear tefillin, but then when he comes to serve in the mikdash, he has to take off his tefillin. Kohanim ba'avodatan uvim beduchanan v'Yisrael b'ma'amadan peturim mina tefillah umina tefillin. My love, im hinichan enan chosesot. Well, we have a challenge against this oral tradition from a baraita that says that the Kohanim would be in their service, and the Leviim, they'd be on the platform and started saying songs, and Israel, they would be on their watches, they'd be saying prayers, and along with while the sacrifices were happening. All these three people, because they're involved in an important mitzvah, so therefore they are patur from the regular tefillah, from saying Amidah, and from tefillin. So we see here that Kohanim do not have to wear tefillin. Well, it says don't have to, but doesn't that mean that they don't have to, but they could? My love, it doesn't that mean that if they put it on, then it's not an obstacle, and it's permitted? Doesn't that would mean that? No, it means that not only are they patur, it means also that if they do put it on, it's an interposition, it's not allowed. In that case, why is it right to say that they don't have to wear tefillin? It should say that they are not permitted to wear tefillin. And the answer is, Kevan dika Leviim v'Yisrael, telam mitnu le'asur, mishum hachi tena peturin. Oh, because it has to use a word that's appropriate for all three groups on the list. Since two of the groups, Leviim and Leviim Israel, where you can't say asur, the Leviim and Israel, they can wear it. The point is that they don't have to wear it because they're involved in an important mitzvah, so they don't have to wear it. But they could wear it while they're singing or while they're participating in the ma'amadot. They could wear a tefillin. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why it says piturin. But indeed, it could be that if the Kohanim wear it, then it will be prohibited and an interposition. And so this baraita we can interpret to be in accordance with the tradition that the Bi'ameh cited. But the Baraita says, and if they do put it on, it's not a chatzitza. That sounds like the Kohanim are permitted. La kashya hadiyad haderosh. Oh, there's no problem. The Baraita that says that it's prohibited, that's talking about tefillin shel yad. And the one that says it's permitted, that's talking about tefillin shel rosh. Now, what's the difference? Maishna deyad dichtiv yilbash al besaro shelo yehe davar chotzet beno libsaro. What's the difference regarding the tefillin shel yad? That's a problem because it says that he has to be wearing his bigdei kohen on his skin, and there can't be anything between his skin and the clothing. And so that's why tefillin shel yad is a problem. We ask about that. The rosh nameketiv is sometimes misnefet al rosho. For the head also says that the hat of the kohen has to be on his head, meaning there cannot be any interposition. If you put the tefillin on, then won't that be an interposition between the hat and the skin of the head of the kohen? Well, there's no problem because there's a baraita that says that when the Kohen Gadol would be wearing the seats, that was on his forehead, and when he wore his hat, that was up on his head, further back. And there you could see skin, you could see hair between the top of the seats and the front of the hat, so there was space in between. Shesham manichin tefillin, and the Kohen Gadol had space there to put tefillin. And so what you see is that the tefillin would not be an interposition because one can put it around the hat. The hat could be in the middle, and the tefillin could be in front of his hat and behind the seats. So therefore, it's not an interposition. Whereas tefillin shel yad that is going to bind onto his arm, that is necessarily going to be between his skin and his sleeve, and that's why one baraita that says it's prohibited, that's talking about tefillin shel yad, and the one that says permitted is talking about tefillin shel rosh. And indeed, these are two separate mitzvot. So even today, if someone doesn't have an arm or is a cast, cannot put on tefillin on their arm, they don't do it nothing. They still put tefillin on their head. We now move on to the next part of the Mishnah that says mechusar kippurim, someone who, like a zav, who waited the days that he has to and is clean, and he went to the mikveh and he waited till night, but he also has to bring korbanot the next day. If a kohen is in that state but didn't bring the korbanot yet, and he performs a service in the mikdash, it is pasul. Minelan, how do you know? Amar Rav Huna, Amar Kira, v'chiper aleha kohen v'tahera, tahera miklar shehi teme'ah. Because it says regarding a woman who gave birth recently, that she has to become tahor, go to the mikveh, and she has to bring korbanot. When she brings the korbanot, then the kohen will atone for her, and she will become pure. What do you mean she become pure? She already went to the mikveh before that. It means that by bringing her final korbanot, she gets an extra level of purity. Meaning until that time, she was not 100% tahor. She still had some tum'ah. And that from here we learn that as someone who is mechusar kippurim still has some level of tumah, and any kohen with any level of tumah cannot serve, and if he serves, it will be pasul, and therefore a kohen who is mechusar kippurim, because he's not 100% tahor, he cannot serve. The Mishnah goes on and says that a kohen who did not wash his hands and his feet, you have to do so in the morning before you start. And then if he goes and does Kabbalah of Dam without washing his hands and feet, it's pasul. The source for this we already learned from a Gezer HaShava, a daf ago, and that was from the word hukah, from someone who is not wearing the proper priestly vestments is not okay, and it says chukah there, and it also says chukah regarding the rechus yadayim v'raglayim. So that's the source. Tanur Banan, Kohen Gadol shelo taba v'shelo kidesh, ben beged lebeged, ben avodah la'avodah, ve'avad avodato keshera, ve'echad Kohen Gadol ve'echad Kohen Hedyot, shelo kidesh yadav v'raglav shacharit ve'avad avodato pesula. If a Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur did not go to the mikveh or did not wash his hands and his feet between changing clothes and between each section of the avodah on Yom Kippur, and he nevertheless served, avodato keshera, it is okay. We're going to see about over here that he's supposed to go to the mikveh 5 times and wash his hands and his feet 10 times. He does this every time he changes clothes because he has the regular bigdei Kohen Gadol that he wears for some of the things, but when he's doing the special avodot for Yom Kippur, he wears bigdei lavan. And every time he changes his clothes, he has to wash his hands and feet, change, go to the mikveh, then put on the clothes and wash his hands and feet. This is the discussion whether he washes his hands and feet before or after he puts his clothes on. But the point is that he's doing that, going to the mikveh 5 times between each changing of clothes and washing hands and feet before and after each of those mikvaot. And so that's what's supposed to be lechatechila. What if he didn't? It's still kosher. However, a Kohen Gadol or any Kohen, any day, who did not at least wash his hands and feet in the morning when he starts, and he goes and serves, avodato pesula. So there is a distinction between getting ready in the morning, do it in the morning, first thing, and that will last the rest of the day to make it kasher. But lechatechila, the Kohen should also wash his hands and feet between each time. Amar le Rav Aser Rabbi Yochanan, mikidi 5 tevilot v'asara kiddushin deoraita, v'chokah ketibehu li'akebu Mahu. Rava said, tells Rabbi Yochanan, I don't understand this leniency. Since the dipping 5 times, and washing hands and feet 10 times are in the Torah, and it says the word chukah, so we should attach this to the Gezerah Shava here, and it should be indispensable. It should be pasul if he doesn't do that. Rabbi Yochanan explains, Amar kera'u besham, lebisham me'akevet, ve'en dabar acher me'akevet. Rabbi Yochanan explains that pasuk in Acharemot, in the context of Yom Kippur, says that he is going to put on his clothes. So from that, ul besham, it means that ul besham, the wearing of the clothes, that is indispensable, but anything else is not indispensable, only that. And so, yes, he has to have the proper clothes on each at the right time, but if he didn't wash in between, then it's okay. Sahavu fanav, and Rabbi Aseh, this question was really bothering him, so that when Rabbi Yochanan gave this answer, he was so happy, he was lit up with joy. Amar le vava ufta ketabi lach yachid safra nameh. Rabbi Yochanan says, why are you jumping with joy? I wrote you a letter vav in a piece of wood. If you try to write a letter vav, it's just one line in a piece of wood. The wood has all scratches already. You won't even be able to notice it. Meaning, the answer I gave you is not a complete answer. Why are you jumping for joy? Because if you say this is true, ul besham, that means, you just have to, as long as you're wearing the clothing, that's what makes you ready, even nothing else, then you have the same question in the morning. But we said that Yom Kippur or any other day, if the Kohen or Kohen Gadol does not wash in the morning, then it's pasul. So, but why not say ul besham? As long as he's wearing clothing, that's good enough. B'di avad. So I only gave you half an answer. Amar Chizkiya, Amar Kera, Vaita Lahem, Chok Olam, Lo Uzar'o, Ledorotam, Davar, HaMe'akev Bezaro, Me'akev Bo, Davar She'eno Me'akev Bezaro, and Me'akev Bo. And so Chizkiya will come and give the answer to the question. The pasuk in the context of washing hands and feet says it should be a statute forever to them and to his descendants through their generation. Him means the Kohen Gadol, Aharon, or Kohen Gadol, and for Zar'o means the other Kohanim in later generations. So we're comparing the Kohen Gadol to regular Kohanim. Let's forget for a second that's later generations. That'll come back. But just assuming it's comparing Kohen Gadol and regular Kohanim, that means something that is indispensable regarding regular Kohanim is also indispensable for the Kohen Gadol. That's washing every morning. Every Kohen has to wash every morning in order to serve, and so does the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur and any other day. And something that is not indispensable for the rest of the Kohanim. The rest of the Kohanim, they're not performing Yom Kippur service. They're not immersing and changing clothes in the middle of the day, so they don't have to do that. So too, it's not necessary for the Kohen Gadol even on Yom Kippur. And therefore, actually, it's consistent. Every Kohen, including the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, has to wash in the morning. That, you have to get ready for the day. But as long as you do that, then you're good to go. And although the Kohen is supposed to wash between every change of clothes, if he didn't, it's okay. Rabbi Yonatan Amar Mehacha. Rabbi Yonatan learns the same law, but from a different pasuk. ורחסו ממנו משה ואהרון ובניו. דבר מעכב בבניו, מעכב בו. דבר שאינו מעכב בבניו, אין מעכב בו. Regarding the kiyor, the washing basin that is in the Mikdash, it says that Moshe and Aaron and their sons will wash using it. That means, look at how it's comparing again, Aaron, Kohen Gadol, to the rest of the Kohanim, the Banav. That means the same derivation. Something that is necessary for the rest of the Kohanim to do, meaning wash every morning, also Kohen Gadol has to do every morning and on Yom Kippur. But something that is not necessary for the rest of the Kohanim to do, they don't have to wash between changing on Yom Kippur, they don't change. So too, the Kohen Gadol is not indispensable if he doesn't do it. The service is still valid. That's Chizkiya and Rabbi Yonatan. Rabbi Yonatan, my tama lo amar midde Chizkiya. Amar lach ahula dorot hu dichtib. How come Rabbi Yonatan doesn't use that first pasuk that Chizkiya used, that has the word ledorotechem? Because he'll say, no, that's just teaching you for generations. Future Kohanim Gedolim have to be the same as Aharon. Don't think Aharon is different from a future Kohen Gadol. But it's not comparing Kohen Gadol to regular Kohanim, so I don't like that pasuk for as a derivation. Ve'idach, and Chizkiah, how come he didn't use the pasuk regarding the kiyor? My ta'ama lo amar mehai, meba'ele lechad Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Hanina, tamar Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Hanina, kol kiyor she'en bo kedei lekadesh arba'a kohanim mimenu, en mekadeshin bo, shene'emar, v'rachasu mimenu, Moshe v'Aaron u'banav. Because he needs that pasuk for a different derivation, for what Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Hanina teaches, that if you have a washing basin that is not sufficiently big for 4 Kohanim to be able to use it simultaneously, you cannot use it. How do you know? It has to have at least 4 spouts and be big enough and have enough water for 4 people to use it, because the pasuk says that who will use it? Moshe and Aharon and Banav. That's 4 people. Moshe is 1, Aharon is 2, Banav plural, 2 sons. That's 4 people altogether. And therefore, since he uses that pasuk for a different reason, he doesn't use it for this law. Tenor Banan, Kesad Misvat Kiddush. Now that we're talking about washing hands and feet, how does it work? How do you do it exactly? Maniach yadoy manit al gaber raglohay manit, v'yados malit al gaber raglohay asmalit, u'mekadesh. The first opinion says, you put your right hand on your right foot, and your left hand on top of your left foot. Kind of like, see this guy over here, he's putting his left hand on his left foot. Or this guy's doing both at the same time. That's good. So then you put that, and together, your left hand on your left foot, you put it under the water. Right hand on your right foot, you put it under the water. This guy's doing his right hand and right foot. Okay, good. So that's not so hard to do. You have to be able to, you don't even have to be able to touch your toes, because look, he's like kneeling with one leg, and then he could touch with the other leg and put that forward, and then wash the other one. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda Omer, maniach shetei yadav o zo al gav zo, ve'al gabe shetei raglav zo al gabe zo mekadesh. Amru lo hiflagta. Yefshar lasot kehen. Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, says he has to do it all at once. He has to put one hand on top of the other and one foot upon the other, meaning you put one foot on top of the other foot and put both hands on that foot. So meaning you're putting all of your weight all on one foot, where the other foot is on top of that and both hands are on top of that. So you really have to be an acrobat in order to do that and be able to balance at the same time and wash them all at the same time. So his colleague said, oh, you've gone too far. This is impossible to do this. How could you ask every Kohen to do that? You have to be a trained circus acrobat. Shapir Ka'amartle. The Gemara says, that's a good question. What would he answer? Hamar of Yosef, Chavero Mesayeh. There's no problem. Other people can help you. If you have someone on the side to hold you up, the problem is balance. It's not that you can't get into that position. Okay, you could bend your knees a little, you could get everything on one, but you need someone to hold you up. So your friends will come and they'll hold you up on the side. My benai, what's the essence of the disagreement? The question is, if you are being held up with support from the side, is that called standing up? You have to be standing up. We said you have to be standing up for all the avodot, and including for washing hands and feet, you have to be standing. If you could sit on the floor and do it, that'd be easy. But you have to be standing to do it, so you need someone to support. If standing with support is still considered standing, then you could do it that way. That's Rabbi Yosef's opinion. But the Tanakama says, no, that's not called. Your standing means standing on your own, and it's impossible. Therefore, you could do the right side first and then the left side second. Amar le Rav Sama bered Rav Asher Ravina le'eteb metav ulkadesh. Amar kera l'sharet v'sherut me'omad hu. Rav Sama, the son of Rav Asher, asked Ravina, why not sit down? This is not an official service that you're doing, so why not say that you can just sit down and do it? Because the pasuk says lesharet, that they have to wash with water and come to minister, meaning that the service is while standing, and this is included in the pasuk of washing. So the washing to get ready for service also has to be standing, just like the service itself has to be standing. Tenor banan kidesh yadav raglav bayom en tzarich lekadesh balayla. Balayla tzarich lekadesh bayom debrei Rabbi. According to the Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, if a Kohen came and he washed his hands and feet during the daytime and did whatever services he wanted to do during the daytime, and then he does another service at night, he does not have to wash again, because the day follows the night, and once he did it in the morning at some time, then he doesn't have to do it at night. However, the other way around is not true. If he started off at night and he's still there and he's doing a service at night, and then he does in something in the morning, he's still there in the morning, then he has to wash his hands and feet again. No, in other words, according to the B, every morning you got to start all over again and wash your hands and feet, even if you were there continuously. Shahya B Omer, Lina Mo'edet Bikidush Yadayim V'Raglayim, because according to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he thinks that the law of Lina means if something stays overnight, then it's disqualified. That's a general rule regarding korbanot. If a portion of a korban is left overnight, and then that's it. In the morning, you can't use it anymore. So lina, that's a general rule. But lina, that applies also to kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. That the service that you did yesterday, that during the day, that can continue till night. That's okay, because in general, you have a korban, you did it during the day, you can still burn the leftover parts at night. But something that was now left over overnight, you cannot continue to burn it in the morning. So too, the same thing, even if you washed your hands and feet at night, once the morning comes, new day, you got to start over again. Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon Omer, En lina mo'edet b'kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon, disagrees. And he says that the law of staying overnight does not apply to washing hands and feet. And therefore, according to him, if you started off at night and you washed your hands and feet and you're still working and now the morning comes, that's okay. The overnight rule does not apply to washing hands and feet. You do not have to wash again in the morning. Tanya idach. There's another version of this braita that's about the same, but a little bit different. Haya omed umakriv al gabe mizbeach kol halayla leora taun kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. Here it says if one was involved in making a sacrifice on the Mizbeach all night, and in the morning, then the morning comes, and he's still continuing to work, he has to go and wash his hands and feet. The difference here is that he's working continuously, whereas in the first one, he does something, he's still there, but he does something, he takes a break, does something else. So this is with breaks, the second baraita is without breaks. Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon Omer, Kevan shekidesh yadav raglav metachilat avoda, afilu mikan vad 10 yamim eno tzarich lekadesh. Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, says, since he washed his hands and feet whenever he came, day or night, even as long as he's still doing avodah, then he does not have to wash his hands and feet again, not from now, even 10 days. Okay, he can't stay up for 10 days straight, so it's theoretical, but the point is, that doesn't matter how long, as long as he's working continuously. I need both of these braitot, because if I only had the first one, I would say that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says you have to wash again in the morning. That's in the case where one took a break between one service and the next. However, if it was continuously working, then perhaps he would agree with Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon. So that's why I need the first one to say, that's why I need the second one to say that even if he's continuously working, Rabbi would still say you have to wash again every morning. If I only had the second one, I would say, in the second one where he's working continuously, that's what Rabbi Elazar says, that he never doesn't have to wash again. But if he stopped and started between avodot and took a break, maybe he would agree with Rabbi that he has to wash again in the morning. And therefore, we have the first one to teach us, no, that Rabbi Elazar is lenient even if he takes breaks in the middle. My tamad Rabbi, what's Rabbi's source? Tichtiv big yishtam, because the pasuk says they have to wash their hands and feet when they come close, when they come, meaning when they begin the service at the beginning of the day in the morning. That's when the first service is done in the morning. So that means every morning. My tamad Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon tichtiv beboam, and Rabbi Elazar's source is beboam, means when the Kohen comes, meaning whenever he comes. Doesn't matter when he comes, morning or night. Once he comes, he does it, and then he doesn't have to do it again until he leaves and comes back. And now we ask, Rabbi, the other pasuk says beboam. What are you going to do with that pasuk? Ve'i ketib b'gishtam velo ketib beboam. Hava amina kol gisha v'gisha ketib rachamana beboam. So Rabbi says, if it said b'gishtam only and didn't say beboam, I would say that gishtam means for every approach, meaning every time he starts another ritual, another rite, he does this korban, he finished, he does the next korban, he will have to wash his hands and feet again and again. That's what that would think if it said b'gishtam both times. Therefore, bo'am means only once a day. Gishtam means at the beginning of the day, at the beginning of the temple service, which starts in the morning, he has to wash. But once he does that, bo'am, he already did that. He doesn't have to do it for everyone, but only once for the day. That's why it says both. And to be Elazar, what is he going to do with the other word? It also says bigishtam. He's focusing on beboam. So he explains. If it said beboam twice and didn't say bigishtam, you might think that one has to wash his hands and feet even if one enters into the mikdash, not for the purpose of a ritual. Let's say Kohen is just coming in just to look around, just to see what's going on. He has to wash his hands and his feet. No, if it said bo'am only, I might think that. That's why it says bigishtam, which means to begin to do a service. Only if he's coming in to do a service, then he has to. But once he did that, then he can go on even for many days, as long as he doesn't leave and come back. We ask about that. No, would anybody think that one would have to wash hands and feet for coming in for no reason? Haketib l'sharet, the pasuk says, to come in to serve. Obviously, it's only to serve, to do an actual service. Ela b'gishtami ba'aleh d'chid Rab Acha bar Yaakov. Tamar Rab Acha bar Yaakov. Rather, Rabbi Elazar needs the word b'gishtam to teach us a different law that Rav Acha bar Yaakov taught, who said, "Hakom odim b'kiddush sheni shehu keshu lavush mekadesh tamar kera o begishtam mi she'eno mechusar ela gisha bilbad yasazeh shemechusar lebisha v'gisha." It comes to teach that everybody agrees regarding the second washing of hands and feet. We mentioned earlier that the Kohen Gadol, he changes 5 times on Yom Kippur. So each time, so he comes and he finished something, and now he's about to change. There's a machloket whether he washes his hands and feet first and then takes off his clothes, or takes off his clothes first and then washes his hands and feet. That there's a machloket about. Okay, one way or another, after he does that, he goes to the mikveh. Everybody agrees regarding the second one that first he puts on his clothes and only then he washes his hands and feet. So regarding the second washing, he does it while clothed, as the pasuk says, or bigishtam, when he is ready to come and present himself to do a service. That means that he washes himself when the only thing he has left to do is come near the Mizbeach and do the service. And that excludes someone who has to first get dressed and then come to the Mizbeach. So if he has to do 2 things, that's too many things. So she shouldn't wash his hands and feet yet. Rather, do everything you can, put on your clothes, then wash after that, so that the only thing left to do is bigishtam. Since he uses the pasuk for that law, that's why he needs bigishtam, and then the beboam is to teach that only once every time he comes in, but as long as he's there, he does not have to wash again. Ulaktir isheh lamali. Now, in that same pasuk, it says, to burn by smoke. What is that phrase coming to teach? I might think that one has to wash his hands and feet only when it comes to an action that is required for atonement, like sprinkling of the blood. Then you have to wash your hands and feet. But something that is not required for atonement, like putting the inner parts on the mizbeach, which you're supposed to do, but is not a requirement for atonement, I might think that you don't have to wash your hands and feet for that, and that's why Laktir Isheh teaches that also for that one has to wash his hands and feet. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen.